me knows I don't listen to no very well either. So I'm very persistent. So enjoy. Thank you very much, Hilliard.
Well, I know y'all all still eating, so just go ahead and continue eating. Don't pay attention to me. I'll just be a background noise. Anyway, it's an honor to be here. I couldn't believe Pearson asked me to do this. She said, I want you to tell a 15-minute story about yourself. I thought, man, I couldn't talk for 15 minutes about myself. The only way I can do it is talk real slow, so I'm going to have to slow this thing down. But anyway, here goes. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I graduated from Fraser High School in 1962. I guess that's about the time all the jokes started coming out of there about Fraser. But anyway, I'm sure you've heard some of the Fraser jokes. I was a B student at Fraser, and I don't really think I excelled in anything. But in my senior year, my father and three other guys started Great Southern Corporation, which is a local company, and they were importers and distributors of a variety of products being sold to wholesale groceries and wholesale hardware stores really throughout the Southeast. But the fact that he started that business in my senior year and I was able to work there, I was lucky to be able to work, to start working there, because I learned a lot from that business. I say I was lucky. I think I started at 50 cents an hour, and I know some of my friends were working at McDonald's and grocery stores making about $1 an hour, and I told my dad that, and he says, well, but this is a job you can learn something from. And he says, you always don't worry about the money, take the job that you can learn something from. And it was very good advice, and it served me well. Anyway, so I did work with my dad's company. I worked with him about 8 years. Since I was able to start in a startup, I had a variety of jobs in the company. I learned everything, of course, from sweeping the floors to whether it be warehousing, shipping, sales, purchasing, all areas of the company. And I really did enjoy it. So I found something I felt like I could excel in, so I applied myself to it, and I focused on that business, working in the business, and I ended up, I think I worked full-time after my freshman year at Memphis State. Go Tigers. Anyway, after my freshman year at Memphis State, I started working full-time, and and in that 8 years, I had a number of jobs there, which really helped me get a good general business experience. I think at one point I even sold a couple of stores of Sam Walton's that later became Walmart. And I was drafted into the Army after I graduated from Memphis State, and I served my 2-year stint, came back to Great Southern, and I worked in sales when I came back, and went into sales management, and then later moved on into purchasing and administration of that company. At 27, I became an officer in the company, and I felt like that I was heir apparent to being president of that company. So I was pretty well pleased with my success. But I got a little bit uncomfortable as I'd worked there a while. I just felt like it was my dad and the other guys had started the company. I felt like it was their company, and I wanted to do something independent. So I began to think of ways that I could start my own business. So at 29, and a surprise to everyone, I came in and resigned from the company. And I like to think that they hated to see me go, but and I think they did. But anyway, I was happy there, but I just wanted to be independent, and I just had a desire to have my own company. So at 29, I decided to start my own company. I left there knowing that that I had been very blessed to work in that startup company. It was only about 8 years old at the time, maybe 10 years old, because I had got such a varied business experience from that company. I'm forever grateful to my dad and those other management guys that helped me in that company, helped me learn about business. So I was very lucky. It's only about 6 months after I married my lovely wife Harriet that I told her, well, I'm quitting my good job with my good pay and I'm going to start this company. And she, at first, I don't think she was real comfortable with that, but, you know, and she questioned me about it. But anyway, she understood as what I wanted to do, and she was a great supporter of mine, and still is to this day. But you know, I told her, I said, well, I'm going to leave this company, and I'm going to start a company selling gloves. And she said, you couldn't sell enough gloves to support this family. There's not that many sold in the U.S. And I said, well, there really is. But anyway, it seems like a very small market, but I convinced her I could do it, so she gave me her fullest support. I started, you know, in the prior company, I had experience in importing and distributed a variety of products. One of those product lines was gloves, and we imported gloves. We sold them, as I said, to wholesale grocers and wholesale hardware stores. But at that time, OSHA, Occupational Safety and Hazard Administration, had started requiring that the factories supply their workers with gloves or all kinds of safety protection, with gloves being one of them. And I saw that the market was going to be expanding. I thought, well, that's a good area. And then I'd had the experience in importing. I could see that foreign products were starting to grow a lot in the U.S. And so I had some connections there from my previous experience. And I said, well, this is something I think I could do. I had a good general business background, and I had a little knowledge about the product and also about sourcing it. So I decided to start that company. I didn't have a lot of money to start with. As I said, I had a pretty good job, but I'd saved about $27,000, which I know it doesn't seem like much today, and this is 33 years ago. But that was a pretty good little nest egg then, but it wasn't very much nest egg to start an import company by any means. But that's what I started with, was $27,000 on my Visa card. And then I was able to talk to one of the local banks, and they gave me a credit line for $30,000 on day one, which you got to say that's quite a feat. I think challenging anybody to do that today is pretty hard to do, to get them to give you credit before you can start your business. But anyway, they gave me a $30,000 credit line before I started my business, and they had done it because I had worked with the bank for the last couple of years at Great Southern, helping negotiate their credit line and working with them. So I guess they had faith in me. So anyway, I was pretty lucky to get a credit line right off the bat. But I got a $30,000 credit line, so I had $57,000 to start my business. I don't know if you know, but importing has long lead times and can be pretty capital intensive, so $57,000 is not very much money. So I said, well, the only way I can do it is I'll start real small, and I kept my office in my home. My first warehouse was a 10x20 mini storage unit on Lamar, near Lamar and Gitwell. It's still there today. It was number 2. I go by it every once in a while just to look at it, just to think about the old times. Anyway, it was a 10x20. It was not very big. But anyway, that was my first warehouse, and I kept that warehouse for a year or so. But quickly after I started in the business, in fact, I don't think I told you the date. Like I said, I may have told you 1974, but I actually started on April Fool's 1974, which I guess turned out to be a bad omen, as some of you know in here. 1974 turned out to be a recession year, and the economy quickly turned. It's probably already turned before I started my business, but I wasn't smart enough to catch that. But anyway, the economy turned, and it did cause me some difficulties in my first year. I had another difficulty that one of my first shipments of industrial gloves, the sizing came in a little small, so about the only people I could sell them to was some people around the South Texas border with small hands. But anyway, had some challenges there. But that first year, after about 3 months, I said, this is not working. You know, I can't make it the way I'm going. So my wife was working, thankfully, and I said, well, this is not going to work this way. I'm going to have to do something else. So I decided I was going to get me a second job, one of the places I wanted to get on real bad was a little company called Federal Express, and it was a little company at that time, and it only been in business a year and a half or something like that. And I went over there and I practically begged them for a job loading planes, and I couldn't believe it. And it killed me when they finally said, "No, we're just not going to hire you. You had a desk job for 5 years, and there's no way you're going to be able to work out there loading planes." And I said, "Man, I can do it. But anyway, they didn't get me. They didn't hire me. So I had to show them up. 3 days later, I had a job at a truck line, and I was loading trucks at night. So I showed them I could do it. Of course, I think I made $3 an hour. I think Federal Express was paying about $4.50 then. So that's the reason I wanted only FedEx. But anyway, it was it was a tough first year. I had a lot of, with the economy and all, we really had a tough time getting customers. One of the things that I did that was a little bit different than everybody else is that since it was a one-man show, I really couldn't travel to see my customers, and most of my customers would in the start were in the Southeast. I really couldn't travel to them, so I was doing most of my business by telephone. At that time, no one really had done much telemarketing business to business. We had actually done a little bit of it at my former company, Great Southern, and that gave me that experience. So it was natural for me to try to do business-to-business telemarketing on my company, and it was immediately showed success because I had a sales cost like 2%, whereas my competitors had a sales cost maybe 8 or 10% with their field sales and field sales reps. So that gave me a cost advantage there. Of course, I was paying probably 5 or 10% for more for my product because I was such a small company, had to bring in small shipments, and my handling costs were high. I paid more for my product too, but I still with that sales expense savings, I was able to be pretty competitive on my pricing. So it was difficult to get the customers over the telephone back then. I mean, people just didn't buy things over the telephone. They wanted to see you. But you just had to keep talking to them. You finally found somebody who's willing to do it, to buy from you. So when they bought from you and you gave them great service, they came back, and it was a mute question about doing business over the telephone from then on. So I think that the telemarketing concept really did help me. Of course, I also started, as I said, in a product line that was having some good growth with OSHA rulings, and so that gave me some distinct advantages. I don't think I told you what the name of my company was. I'm a real creative person. I started this glove company in Memphis, so I had to be real creative to think of a good name. So it's Memphis Glove Company. Anyway, I don't think marketing creativity are my strength, but anyway, that was the name I chose. Let me catch up, see where I'm at here. Well, I'm halfway through my speech. Okay, in my second year, things began to turn for me. Despite the economy hadn't bounced back yet, I was starting to get a foothold with a few customers, and I'm making a little bit of profit. I think the first year I made $3,000. My second year, I think I probably went up to about $20,000. My first year, I did $120,000 in sales. It's not very much, I know, but anyway, the next year it went to $300,000, and for the next 5 years, I doubled every year for 5 years. So at the end of 5 years, I was sitting, I think, at $4.5 to $5 million in sales, and then things continued to grow. And after about the fourth, fifth year, it was still only 2 employees, my wife and I, and I started adding people to payroll. And of course, my experience in that from a previous employer of being able to select and motivate people had helped me. It was helping me again. So I hired some good people, and to this day, I've done a pretty good job of hiring other people to help me get to where I am today, and help me realize some of my goals. In our 10th year, we did about $33 million worth of business, and we were recognized as a leader in the industry. We had, well, I think it was before the 10th year, but we were recognized in Inc. magazine 3 times as one of the fastest growing private companies in the U.S., I think for 3 years in a row. We were one of the first companies to import to China. I went into China very soon after Nixon opened up China and started factories there as partnerships, and later became sole owner of those factories. After the first 10 years, we found a lot of our competitions trying to emulate our telemarketing program. Most of my competitors, it took forever for them to start telemarketing. I couldn't believe it. And another thing that we're trying to emulate was, for some reason, I don't know, I never have figured out why, but most of my competitors when I started took about 3 days to ship an order. We didn't have that problem. We only had $57,000, so we got an order out today. It was going out today. Okay, so what I would do, and I told you I was working a truck line. In fact, the first year I would actually sell till 3 o'clock. Then I would load up my truck and go to either that truck line or another truck line and drop off my shipments on my way to my night job, and then I would work the night job. So, I made sure I got them out that day, and because of course I shipped fast, that means I got my money back faster, and I also was real selective in what customers I sold, because I couldn't afford to sell a customer who wouldn't pay you on time. So I was pretty selective, and that helped me turn my money real well. About 15 years ago, I saw the company, was starting to mature. We couldn't, of course, continue to double sales every year. It just exponentially just won't work. But I think in the first 10 years we had an 80% growth rate for 10 years, which brought us to 33 million. So that was pretty good growth. But after that, sales started getting closer to single digits anyway, 10 or 15% growth. So I started doing a little bit of investing in some other areas. I started maybe 15 years ago, I guess, and did some real estate. I developed a subdivision in Olive Branch, which was one of my first ones. Somebody mentioned it a while ago. But and I've dabbled in real estate for the last 15 years and been fairly successful in some of those real estate. But by far the biggest success I've had has been in those companies. In the last 5 years, I've done quite a bit of venture capital investment, probably in about a dozen companies, and my success has not been very good. I think 10 of those companies are now gone, so I still got a couple I'm riding and betting on that maybe will help me out in that area. But you can see I don't make all the right decisions, because I definitely invested in a lot of companies that didn't work out. But anyway, I've tried a little venture capital investing. I guess that pretty well brings me up to date. I just want to say, I realize I was real lucky to have that opportunity to learn from a startup company that my dad and the other guys started up. And everybody didn't have that experience, and I wish they did, but that was extremely beneficial to me. And of course, I was lucky to have a wife who supported me too. So, and one more thing I was lucky about I didn't mention is I started this distribution company in Memphis, and I'm telling you, it's a great distribution city, and I've got great service out of Memphis, and it's been a big help to me for my entire career. So I was lucky to be here. I don't know, I'm hoping you'll get something out of this message, so I'll just try to go over a couple of things that I thought about that maybe have helped me. Yeah, I mentioned that my dad said that you ought to take the job for less pay if you can earn more, so it'll help you make more pay later. I also mentioned about being frugal and saving money to start my business. I see a number of these startups, they really don't sacrifice to save money on the front end, so they go out a little bit thinly capitalized. I think that's a problem. I obtained a lot of general business experience and knowledge before I started my venture. Yeah, I was lucky that I had the opportunity to do that, but that really helped me. And I started a business where I had some expertise. I knew a little bit about importing. I even knew a little bit about my product line. I really didn't know my customer base because my knowledge had been only in wholesale type customers, wholesale hardware, wholesale grocers instead of industrial suppliers. But I knew a pretty good bit about my product line and about how to source it. And I was real frugal in my business. I don't think I mentioned it, but I did everything from, actually draw up my letterhead and print my price list. Type them and everything else. In fact, I got my Memphis State accounting book out and set up my books by reading that accounting book. I probably didn't learn the accounting as well as I should have when I was in college, but anyway, I got it out and I started and so I did my books from the very start. So I was very frugal. And I would say that I was, I found something in working in the previous company that I liked business and I was eager to learn, and so of course I felt like I strived to be the best and tried to continually improve my company. And another thing I did is I focused on my core business. I was not, I decided the product line and what I wanted to do, and I stuck with that. And I see a lot of times in some of the ventures that I've dealt with where they just keep changing their direction, and sometimes that's a good case because maybe you're going in the wrong direction. But in my case, I had a good idea and I stuck with it. So I stuck to my core business and just worked on it real hard and expanded it. So I was very focused. Of course, I hired motivated, good people and to help me achieve my goals, which you can't do it without them. And I did try to set a good example of work ethic and morals, and I think that's always paid off for me. I don't know what else you could get from a message. Only one last thing you might have gotten from a message is you do not have to be a good public speaker to be successful in business, okay? All right. Thanks for taking the time to hear me. I know a lot of you have got to go back to work, but
Can we take some questions?
Sure.
Does anybody have?
I got one. You've obviously dealt with China for a long time. How has that changed over that period of time to where it is today, and what do you think may be happening there in the next 10 years or whatever as it relates to China? As a place to import from?
That's a real good question, Tim. Next question. In fact, I'll probably have to get you to ask your question again because I was thinking about what I was going to say. But anyway, the first time, well, it wasn't the first time. About the third time I went to China to a meeting, there was a lot of cotton textile quotas. There has been the U.S. has imposed on other countries for a long time. Most of these are pretty much gone now. But at that time there was a lot of them, and China had a lot of quota. But anyway, China, I was one of the customers from China, and I was a fairly decent sized customer after about 10 years maybe. So they invited all of us over there, all the importers, U.S. importers, to come to a meeting. And I just had to tell this. I got over there, and there's this room of about 6 China dignitaries, and the guy, makes a speech. Of course, it's in Chinese, and they translate it. And then he asked for questions. And so, one of the guys in our group, asked a question, and the guy says, "Okay, next question." And we looked at him just like you looked at me when I said that. and then so somebody else says, "Okay, well, I'll ask another question." So and the guy says, "Okay, I got that one. What's the next question?" And he did this about 3 times, and finally somebody stood up and says, "Aren't you going to answer any of the questions?" And he said, "This is a meeting for questions. We will give you the answers at a later meeting." Now, we never got those answers, truthfully. I'm serious. The guy, that's all he did. All we did was ask questions, and there was nothing ever that we were ever corresponded with or anything. Now, Tim, I'll have to come back and ask you your question again. How I think China's changed? Is that what you were asking me?
Well, how has it changed, and what do you think may be in front of us for China?
Well, you know, I don't pretend to be an expert on China, but I've been there a long time, and I should probably know a lot more about it than I do. And I'll say this, I have not been, because of my good management team, I have not been into China in probably 6 years now, okay? But anyway, you know, of course, China has developed tremendously from where it was when we started. I could tell you some stories about that, but that's another subject. But it was pretty interesting. But anyway, I mean, at first there's less problems with the government now than there used to be. You used to have so many problems. The government deciding one thing without even really talking to the business people or anything, and it was just hard. It was really hard to do business there. It's a lot easier to do business there now, but it's still it's still pretty hard. I don't know. I'm not really answering your question. Ask me another part. Give it to me in parts. Don't give me too many questions at one time.
The competitiveness of China will diminish as their currency changes and as their society changes, if you will, too.
Well, I mean, I think one thing that is going to make them very competitive for a long time is the large number of people they got, and there's still a ton of them that are not really employed. So they got a lot of people that they can employ in factories and all. So it's a long way. Of course, we got some other countries like India, maybe the same thing. So there's still a lot of employment. So they're going to be a competitive force for a very long time. And maybe that answers your question.
Yeah, it did, because you keep hearing that at some point they're all going to be in the city, and that workforce is going to be somewhat diminished, but you don't see that for a while.
I mean, I think China's got, I think it's got a lot of potential, so a lot of good investments in China, and you know, I know that I could probably, I probably could do well if I worked in China, but I didn't really like traveling in China, so I tried to stay away from there as much as I could. You know, it's nothing like, you know, I don't know if y'all have been there, but it's nothing like living in the USA. There's no place like America. I've been to a lot of them. There's just no place. And I just don't enjoy living in those foreign countries, but there was definitely a lot of opportunity there. There's still a lot of opportunity because they're going to need a lot of products as their economy grows. Okay.
Did you try importing other products, and what happened?
Yeah, I actually skipped part of my speech. Thank you for bringing that up. I started a couple other companies. I didn't even tell you that. I'll bring that up now then, okay? In about, I don't know, 8 or 10 years after I started my company, I partnered with my brother, and we imported actually started in sunglasses, but we quickly switched to safety glasses. This is safety glasses for workers, not plate safety glass. But anyway, we started importing that product, and we were the first importer to get anything certified by ANSI or the government regulations for safety in the U.S. that could be used in the factories. And that was real successful. In fact, it took us about 15 years when we became either the largest or second largest, it was debatable at the time, largest manufacturers and distributors of safety glasses in the world. I'm talking about number of safety glasses. I'm not talking about dollar volume, because our big competitor, the one that we were tied with, I guess, was a U.S. manufacturer, and his price point was double what our price point was. So we might have been selling more units, but he was actually selling more dollars. But we did that, and that company was real successful. And I didn't tell you earlier, but that after it became successful, I ended up buying out my brother, and I merged that into the Memphis Glove. I changed the name of Memphis Glove to Shelby Group International, and I merged that company in. In fact, I did that again about a few years after that. I took another brother and partnered with him on another business, which was protective clothing, and that was real successful. And after he ran that business for about 10 years, I bought him out and merged that into my company too. So I guess that answers some of the other product lines. But both of those companies, we took the basic operating system and structure of our company, like telemarketing, all my computer systems and everything. And we even sold the same customer base. We just sold them a different product line. And the reason we set it up in several different companies at that time is it appeared that we couldn't keep a person on the phone, you know, for 20 minutes talking about gloves, and then try to talk to them 20 minutes about protective clothing, and then try to talk to them 20 minutes about safety glasses. So we specialized in each one of those with different salespeople who knew more about the product lines, and also it was different people calling maybe the same customer, but they were selling a different product line. And I guess that answers your question about some different product lines.
I thought you were in other products. I didn't, but you hadn't mentioned.
Yeah, I hadn't mentioned. I missed that part. Hey, Susie. Yeah.
You are so successful in your core business, and I know you diversify into a venture capital. Even though you say may not doing as well as your core business, but can you give us a few advice as you're looking for a venture capital business? What is the most important things that you can close your eye, do your own business, but what about all those places that where you invest?
Susie, I could not give you any advice on venture capital investing, okay? I'm sure everybody is smarter than I am in this room about that venture capital investments. I'm serious. I think I invested in 12 companies. I think 10 of them have gone under or have been sold at very little. And I'd hate to tell you how much I lost in those businesses. I'm embarrassed to say. I still have one or two that may come out real well. Maybe they'll even. I still have a dream that one or two of them may even, one of the ones that's left may even get me back better than whole. But I could not give you any advice on venture capital. I am not a venture capitalist. I am not a venture. I've done a venture cap. I've been a venture capitalist, but I am not a successful venture capitalist. Okay.
What was the biggest reason that the ones failed?
Well, I mean, I think it's just not a well thought out, maybe it's not a well enough thought out plan. And the problem that I had as a venture capitalist is I would not take the time, well, I was going to say I would not take the time to do the due diligence maybe I needed to do. And it just takes a lot of involvement to know all the details and what all the problems are in those businesses. When I did my own, of course I did that. I was focused on my business and everything I did. I mean, I was thinking about everything. In fact, that's all I thought. I mean, when I ran my business, there was little else besides my family and business. That was it. And I didn't think about other things, and I didn't get on tangents. But when I looked at the venture capital, and, I'd say, well, this sounds like a good idea. I like the people. I think they're sincere. I think this will work. It sounds like it has a good chance of working. I invested. And there was problems come up that, they didn't predict, and they couldn't overcome them. I mean, my business, I'm not a rocket scientist. The business I went in was a real simple bread and butter business. I mean, I knew people were going to need gloves. All I had to do is give them good service and give them a competitive price. It's pretty damn simple. So, I mean, most of the business I invested in, they've been new frontiers or, that type thing. And I think that's a lot harder. And of course, investing in those type things can be some big money winners too, okay? And take something like Google or something like that, or Microsoft or some of those companies people made tons on. But when they started out, it wasn't really a the basic commodity business like mine was.
Just a quick question. My company's gone through the Inc. 500 phase and the fast growth and everything, which is very fun, by the way, as you know. But I guess the question, growth and fast growth particularly, what kind of problems does that create for your company? I know it did for me, it still does, but
well,
what were some of the things you guys experienced?
Well, of course, we were importers, so basically it took us about 6 months to get our product, and so our biggest problem is if you're growing at 100% and you got to forecast out what you're going to sell, what you got to buy now for what you're going to sell 6 or 8 months from now, it gets to be pretty tough. I was actually real good in that area. I was actually real good in forecasting what I would be able to sell, and I had a good control over making sure I sold what I forecasted. So I was real good in that area, and to my credit, I am a pretty good financier, accountant, so and modeling, and I really controlled my finances pretty well. Even though at one point I think I was leveraged like 10 to 1. So yeah, I think probably didn't mention that either. One of the things that gave me early success was I ended up getting some credit from one of my vendors in Hong Kong, and most of the stuff was done by letter of credit then, but I ended up getting them to give me a credit, so that really helped me get my business going. And then after I got going a little bit, I got everything converted to an asset and inventory loan, which helped me a lot too, because it gave me a lot more. I could get me a lot more credit facility. But I'd say it was just really tough trying to be sure you didn't, overextend yourself. And I think one year we had about 150% growth, and I don't remember what the sales were. Like went from 2.4 million to 6 million in 1 year, and I mean it was pretty tough. And there was some sleepless nights, which I worried, wait a minute here, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pay this, okay? So I had a little bit of problems, and I might have had a couple of actual little late payments on some of my vendor credits there, but they didn't think anything about it, I guess. they were pleased. They didn't care I was 10 days late. They were glad to keep selling, doing the business with him. But I'd say that was just the biggest challenge. I can't think of anything else on that. Another question?
Do you own your own facilities in China? Own the manufacturing facilities?
Yes, I didn't at first. The first thing I did was I was actually buying from Hong Kong and Taiwan initially, importing from there. Then when China opened up, one of the companies I bought from in Hong Kong, I agreed with him to start a company with him in China. And so we sent in our own equipment and own materials, and then and hired the local people, and then brought the product back. It really was not legally our factory at that point, at that time, because when Nixon first opened it, there was just really no way to do it, at least in my type business, that you could own your own factory. So we had a license to produce, okay? And we couldn't own the factory building. We couldn't even pay the workers direct. We'd pay the government, and then they paid the workers. But that evolved over time, and eventually I owned 100% of that factory, and eventually we built our own buildings and paying our own workers direct. So we're that way now, but we didn't start out that way. Does that answer your question?
What was responsible for your growth doubling every third, fourth, fifth year?
Well, it was, it's really real simple. I mean, I told you earlier that I couldn't believe it, but my competitors were shipping product in they get an order and take 3 days to ship. Now, what was happening is most of those competitors were in maybe New York or Chicago, and they may have offices in one place and a warehouse in a different city, so communications or systems were bad. I don't know what their problems were, but it would take them forever to ship. I was a small company, and you give me the order today, Devin, I'm going to get it out today. There's no way in hell it's not going today. I mean, that was it. I mean, it's dedicated to that. So that same day service, and we so outpaced our competition for the first 10 years in the service, and as I said earlier, because of the way I had structured my sales, telemarketing sales, my sales cost was so low, we were able to compete on price. So if I had competitive price and I could beat the hell out of them on service, it was a no-brainer. I mean, the problem was I just had a hard time getting the customer over the telephone to commit to buying from me the first time. But once he bit, I had him. So it just exploded from there. And I was riding a good thing, so I just kept saying, well, okay, I'm going to get more products. I'm going to keep adding customers, and they kept coming.
I'll take one more.
Okay. The questions are a lot easier to answer than that speech, I tell you what.
You did good.
Okay.
Reliable supplies overseas, I think, is a key for importers and importers.
Did you say, are there a lot of reliable supplies?
What I'm saying is that to partner with the reliable supplies overseas, partner would be a key for the success.
Partnering with a reliable supplier.
So,
Yeah.
on your past 30 years history of importing from China, in terms of how you reach the potential candidates,
Well, most of the time,
ago and compared to today.
Well, you know, well, at first I wasn't able to even travel to China, so I was in business like 6 years before I ever saw any of my vendors, okay? So, well, I had one advantage. Remember the other company that I had started with, Great Southern, they were importers, and I was in charge of purchasing at one time before I left. So I knew some of those vendors, and some of them might be a vendor they had and they didn't buy from anymore, but I still knew several vendors. So I knew some that I felt were reliable, so I had that advantage. And but you know, then when I started traveling, of course you meet other vendors, and you make trial orders with them, and then you just continually build from there. And once you prove them to be reliable, I might have partnered with them on a factory. I partnered with actually about 3 vendors on factories. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Oh.
More specifically, for if, let's say, now you want to move a different product lines, like whatever, cup. What's your first approach is going to take to identify potential providers overseas, and then when you reach that point, when you evaluate it, what's the key criteria you're using? Because the practice has been changed a lot over there. The priority might change too.
Yeah. Well, of course, I did come up with some new product line. I'm trying to think how we went about selecting those vendors, but we would just go visit those vendors and see what products they were making for other. Usually, if you went to those factories, you would see them making products for somebody in the U.S., maybe a competitor. So I could say, well, you know, I know that company has pretty good products, and I've seen this product out there, so I know this guy's probably making that product. He must be making that product for him. So I says, okay, it's pretty real. It seems like it might be a reliable supplier. So I would make trial orders with them and go from there.
Before that, you kind of reached them by the trade show or by internet?
I actually, no, not trade shows. I'd say only by mail, and at that time, oh my gosh, what is the name of the, not a fax machine, I'm trying to, telex machine, thank you, I'm sorry, that has been lost in my history somewhere. If you've ever used a telex machine, that's a real experience. No, I mean, we might have done a little bit with that, Winston, but I don't remember much about the consulate. No,
you work for the State Department?
No, we didn't do anything with the government. The government had no part in this, and I don't know about all this import finance and all this. None of that. We didn't go there. We started out little, and it just evolved from there. I mean, when I did it, I was really trying to. I mean, I knew I didn't have that much money, so I was really just trying to have a decent job and have my own business. I expected to be able to sell a few $1 million a year over 5 years or something like that, and I thought, well, I'd probably have a pretty good job and have a nice little niche business. I had no idea that it would be at $200 million today. So it just, you know, I thought it was going to be a $3 or $4 million business.
Wow. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That was a good note. And on that, I have the Memphis' own famous entrepreneur as a thank you for doing this for us. Thank you very much, Hilliard.
All right, well, I got something prepared here for this. Okay, I want to thank Pearson Society and Entrepreneurs for asking me to speak to you, and just for fostering entrepreneurial spirit in Memphis. We need to foster this spirit. We need individuals willing to risk and sacrifice and time and money for future gain, come up with new ideas, and we just appreciate the Society of Entrepreneurs sponsoring us.
Well, thank you for doing it for us. We really appreciate it. That note too, the next meeting is April the 10th. Also in this room, Alan Crone, who is an attorney, is going to be speaking about protecting non-compete clauses from intellectual capital, that kind of thing. So I think it'll be a really good. I've heard him speak once. He's going to speak at that meeting. So I hope that you'll come. If you're not on the list, if you didn't get an email, if it came from the commercial appeal or something, and you want to be on the email distribution list, please give Laura or myself one of your cards as you walk out. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hilliard. This was great, and I appreciate it. Have a great day.